Manually triggering your fog machines can be a drag. An obvious way to automate it would be to use a fog machine timer. And perhaps you have one lying around, but it doesn't work with your machine. Do you really need to buy a new one? Maybe not. In this video, we'll make an adapter that allows mismatched fog machines and fog controllers like timers and wireless remote controls to work together. For this video, I'm talking specifically about the party store consumer fog machines that have remote control sockets that look like this. Specifically, this is an IEC 6320 Type F appliance outlet, but they're often referred to as a C13 socket. The matching part on the remotes is an IEC 6320 Type E plug connector, but C14 plug will be better understood by most. These connectors were intended for an appliance, like a fog machine, to provide power to another device, like a timer. So at first blush, these connectors seem to make sense. But the fogger doesn't just provide power to the controller, it gets controlled by the controller, and that's where things start to get a little weird. If you look closely at the plug or socket, you may see L for line, N for neutral, and E, or a symbol that represents earth ground. But that's not how fog machines wire them up. The power is provided on non-standard pins, and there is no ground connection. Because the pins are used in a non-standard way, I'm just going to refer to them by the color of the wires connected to them. These colors, white, green, and black, carry specific meaning in North American wiring conventions. Keep in mind that fog machines do not use them that way. Worse, there are two different ways that foggers wire them up. So some fog machine timers and wireless remote controls from some brands will not work with machines from other brands, and sometimes not even from certain models within the same brand. Nowadays, most common fogger devices, the kind you buy at the party store, use what I call the common style. The other arrangement was used by a once very popular brand called Lite FX, so I'm going to refer to that style as Lite FX style. Some other brands have also used the Lite FX style, so you can't just go by the brand name on the fogger or the timer. The good news is that both styles run the pump that makes the fog come out of the machine by connecting the same two wires. So your basic wired remote will work with either style machine. Here's what one looks like inside. When pressed, the button simply shorts the white wire to the green wire. Though the basic remote will work with any fog machine, if it was designed for the other style, the light won't behave as expected. This is a good time to emphasize that messing around with controllers can be dangerous. Inside, there's a 120 volt alternating current, just like the stuff that comes out of your wall. Some higher-end machines keep the high voltage inside the fog machine and use low voltage for the controllers, but that is not the case with these party store foggers. Unlike basic wired remotes, timers and wireless remotes need power, and they depend on the fogger to provide that power through the remote socket. Whenever it's turned on, a Lite FX style machine provides power on a pair of conductors in the remote socket. Controllers like timers can use this to power their own electronics. Common style machines provide the power on a different pair of contacts. If your timer or wireless remote tries to power itself from the wrong pair of contacts, it isn't going to work. I should also point out that common style machines don't provide power until they've finished heating up. If you plug your timer into your machine and it doesn't seem to have power, allow several minutes before concluding that your timer and machine are mismatched. A dozen years ago, a website called Mod3D posted an article showing the pinout of the remote sockets on party foggers. They explained how to modify your common style controller so that it'll work with a Lite FX style machine. This remains a useful article, and I've included a link to it in the description. In theory, the modification is simple. You open the timer to get access to the circuit board and swap where the white and green wires from the cable connect to it. In practice, however, it can be difficult. I've done this modification to 3 timers, and each one was harder than the previous. It can be hard to get the device open without damaging it. You have to unsolder parts not related to the modification to get access to the circuit, and sometimes there's also glue holding things together in unexpected places. And everything needs to go back together just right to make sure the device works and is safe. Despite what Spirit Halloween implies in the instruction sheet with their fog timer, there is no ground connection available through the remote socket. Any device that connects to a party store fogger must rely on a double insulated design to protect against electric shock. Wait a minute, why modify the controller when it seems like we could use an adapter instead? Why didn't I think of that 3 modifications ago? I call this the Null Fogger cable because it reminded me of a Null modem cable. Look it up. Let's make one. First, we'll need a cable with the right connectors. Search online for a C13 to C14 extension cord. The technical standard refers to these as interconnection cord sets, rather than extension cords, but the latter will yield better search results. Make sure you select one that has the correct connectors at each end. Your search results will probably include some cords that have one of the connectors at one end and a standard wall plug at the other. Don't buy one of those. The thickness of the wires in the cable is a key factor in how much power the cable can safely carry. Long story short, you want a cable with 18 gauge wires. The wire size is often listed as a number followed by AWG, which stands for American Wire Gauge. Sometimes you'll see the gauge of the wire followed by a slash and the number of wires in the cable, like 18/3. You do not need a long cable to make the adapter. I've used ones as short as 1 foot, which is plenty, but you might want to use 2 feet just to give yourself a little flexibility. Next, we need a safe home for those high voltage connections to live, a place where they're not going to be touched, yanked apart, or shorted. For my first Null Fogger, I used these small weatherproof fire retardant inline housings that have good strain relief and screw terminals inside. While this makes for a tidy looking cable, it took longer and was much more fiddly than I expected, so I'm going to demonstrate with one of these plastic junction boxes instead. You must not use a metal junction box. The cable we're splicing does not have an earth conductor to ground a metal box. Step 1. Cut your C13, C14 extension cord in the middle. Psychologically, this is the hardest step. Step 2. Feed the cut ends into the junction box. Make sure you've got the screw caps and waterproofing seals already on the wires. Temporarily pull some slack so you can work with the cable ends. Step 3. Remove the outer sleeve of the cable without nicking the insulation on the individual wires. Some people are very good at this, some are fast. Good beats fast. A common way to do this is to score, not cut, the outer sleeve with a knife. Some people will recommend a dull blade, others recommend a very sharp one. Then, by flexing the cable back and forth at the score marks, the plastic sleeving will break away. Take your time. It's better to go back a second or third time with the knife because your score line was too shallow than to have to start over because it was too deep. Step 4. Connect the wires. I do each one immediately after stripping it before the ends have a chance to get mucked up. Strip the end of your wire the appropriate amount for the type of connector you're using. Give the strands a little twist to keep them from unraveling. We're going to connect black to black, white to green, and green to white. Note that when I say white to green, I mean the white from one side to the green of the other side. Do not connect white and green from the same side. Give all your connections a gentle tug to make sure they are secure. Check to make sure that all of the exposed wire is inside the insulated part of the connector. Even a single whisker that got separated from the rest could cause a problem. Step 5. Pull the slack back out so all the connections are inside the box. Clamp the cables to the box as designed. And give each side a good tug. The resistance to the tug should come from the box, not the electrical connections. Step 6. Close up the box. If you have a meter and want to check the continuity before you close the box, that's fine. But do not attempt any live testing with the box open. It's much funnier when Medi from Electro Boom gets shocked and sets his pants on fire than when you do it. Trust me. Congratulations! You're now the proud owner of a Null Fogger cable. But maybe we should test it first. I concocted this fog machine tester mostly as a way to illustrate what's going on. It's essentially a wired remote control, but with two indicator lights, one wired up in the Lite FX style and the other in the common style. The combination of lights tells us which style of fog machine it's connected to and when that machine is heated up and ready. Here's a classic Lite FX Model 1741 fog machine. The tester confirms that the Lite FX machine is wired in the Lite FX style. No surprise there. A couple minutes later, the second light goes out, telling us that the machine reached the proper temperature. Let's insert the Null Fogger adapter between the machine and the tester. Now the tester says we have a common style machine that's ready. The adapter is doing what we want it to do. It's making a Lite FX machine look like a common style machine to a remote device. And it doesn't interfere with our ability to run the pump. We still get fog. Super. Oh, was that a little too theoretical? You've watched this far expecting to see the Null Fogger do more than blink some lights on a black box? You want to see an actual, unmodified common style timer actually control an actual Lite FX style machine? Fair enough.
We try the manual. Okay, that works. And here's the real key. We turn on the timer. We get timer light and power light. That tells us we're getting power when this would normally not do so. So let's do a little burst of fog from the timer. And there it is. That was a really short burst. Let's give it just a little bit more. This isn't great fog. This is mostly cleaning fluid right now.
Now, I know what you're thinking. You're wondering about compatibility in the other direction. If you have a Lite FX style timer and a common style machine, will the Null Fogger help with this mismatch? I'm wondering the same thing. I have high hopes. Let's find out. This is a V915 400 watt Foggy from VEI. It's a common style machine. It's time to put my rare Lite FX timer on the line. First, let me show you that this timer does not work when directly connected to the Foggy. The timer has no power, not even once the Foggy is warm.
I have a radical idea. The door swings both ways. We could reverse the particle flow through the gate.
How?
We'll cross the streams.
It's finally time to cross the streams. Let's insert the Null Fogger. Power. That's a good sign. If you're a haunter with a mishmashed collection of party store foggers and timers, you might want to make a Null Fogger cable or two so that you can make the most of what you already have.